Hi, it's Louise Platt at Spiral Bright Insight here with a mini reading on the upcoming full moon, which is in Gemini this time, and it is on either the 4th or the 5th of December, depending on where you are in the world. It's at 11:14 p.m. in the UK for us on the 4th. So adjust that sort of according to your own time zone. It is happening at 13 degrees and 3 minutes of Gemini. So that's the moon in Gemini with the sun in opposition in Sagittarius. And this is actually the second of a run of full moons, all at 13 degrees. So yeah, there are 4 full moons at 13 degrees in this kind of current cluster. And you may have watched my previous full moon video, but I was talking about the energy of the 13 being very much about the divine feminine energies. And I think, this is something that we really do need to pay attention to at this time. But also, as the 13, I'm not sure if I did talk about this before, but the way I see the 13, for me, it's a bridge between sort of what we've already known. If we think we've got 12 months in the year, we've got 12 signs of the zodiac. Obviously we can go back into other parts of history and myth, but the 13 is like that bridge to something beyond. So again, that feels very relevant, particularly given sort of what we are navigating at this time. So this is the final full moon of 2025. So again, I say this in every sort of full moon video, but the full moon really is a time of completion. It is when we can see the full surface of the moon with the full light of the sun shining on her. So there is something being sort of revealed, exposed, illuminated, brought to light at this time. And in the sign of Gemini, this is really the realm of information, stories, facts, fragments, strands, ideas, beliefs, gossip comes to mind, but it is very much the domain of the mindset and how and what we are learning, what we're thinking about, what we're talking about, what we are sharing. So there's definitely a full light on the details, often details and facts and pieces of information that weren't necessarily available or visible or seen until now. And again, there can be lots of stories, lots of rumors, big sort of focus on the media at this time. And as with all of astrology, there is no one size fits all approach to interpreting. It will show up for you in its own way, depending on where this moon is falling in your chart, how it's aspecting other parts of your natal chart potentially. But again, if we are all going to experience it in different ways, and as we experience every version of a story at every situation. And I'm reminded again, this has been a repeating theme for me and a repeating message that there is no one set version of the truth. We all have our own truth, and it is affected and influenced by our own filter, our own lens. We can all look at one event, one person, one situation, one scenario, and 10, 20, 30 different pairs of eyes could watch that and experience it and have a different impression and a different takeaway and a different perspective. So when we're sort of talking about we're waiting for the truth to be exposed, we're waiting for the truth to come to light, it's going to be different for all of us. So I think that's a really important sort of message to get across, because your version of the truth is going to be very different from the next person's version of the truth. And ultimately, it is about coming back into the self and being clear and comfortable with your own version of what is going on. So I've just noticed I've got all my Christmas decorations in the background, so apologies. I should have maybe tidied up before I did this. Anyway, Gemini energy is mutable air, so it's very quick, it's very speedy. Lots of kind of things are going to be happening at once at this full moon. There can be a real sort of scattered energy with Gemini. It can be really difficult to focus because there is so much going on, so many ideas, like kind of look here, look there. So again, be mindful of that. If there's a lot coming through in the media, or even just where you live, or in your own world, or even in your own head, I kind of want to think it's not always about out there. This is about what's kind of going on within the self. So if you've got loads of ideas, lots of distractive thoughts, again, it's just the energy. And yeah, I think the real sort of theme of this full moon is about finally being able to see what stories hold truth for you as an individual. So, this can be personal narratives that you have been running for years that may have been based on conditioning, patterning, programming, false narratives, false truths, false ideas, false mindsets, false beliefs. All of that is up for review and exposure and revelation at this time. And again, I want to say again that, when I speak for myself, I spent a long time, as through this process of awakening, waiting for things to come to light, the big stories to break, the truth to surface, the whatever version of events to be exposed. But actually, I've realized, and particularly during the course of this year, it has been incredibly intense but empowering and liberating, that it is often or almost always about the inner narratives that we are running within our own self, and we can hold on to all sorts of ideas that simply aren't true. And it's the mind, it's the higher self, or the kind of ego's way to protect the self. That's often a reason. But again, it's about exploring what stories and information you might have within that it's time to let go of. And again, it's often just about a shift of perspective. So if there is something coming in, like it's kind of constantly coming into your psyche, to your awareness, that won't let go, that's just like quite persistent, just take the time to sit with it and ask it what it's trying to alert you to. Why is it trying to get your attention? Because often with Gemini, we can be so busy, we can be so scattered, so like thinking of a million different things at once, that we don't give ourselves time to just sit and be. And I think it can be, like I said, a lot of distraction is likely to be taking place at this time. So it's about coming in to the self. And of course, another mutable sign is Virgo. And we have the South Node in Virgo in an exact square to the moon, creating a grand immutable cross when we add in the Sun and the North Node in this beautiful 13 energy. So this is very much about having discernment, and it is the discernment that will allow you to let go of those programs, those ideas, those narratives that have either run their course, they were great for a time, they served their purpose, but they are no longer serving your greatest good, and they may be holding you back. Also tune into the body, because again, with strong air, it can get really kind of noisy in the head. So keep coming into the body, grounding, breathing, centering, discerning, detoxifying all that might be going on out there. And that will help you sort of shift more into the North Node, which is about letting go. It's about surrendering. It's about knowing and trusting that we cannot necessarily understand what is going on, even though the full moon is trying to alert us to, or trying to draw us into that. It's about, using these beautiful energies. With the Sun in Sagittarius, it's about seeing the bigger picture as well. Having a sense of perspective. Don't get dragged into the detail at this time, because it might actually drive you a little bit crazy. So this is kind of what is coming through for me in terms of the kind of main themes of this full moon. But I'm going to show you the chart. I'll pull up a few key points, and then we'll talk about some of the fixed star energies as well. So this is the chart. We can see we've got the Sun 13 degrees 3 of Sag opposing this beautiful moon, and then we can see that the nodal axis with North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo really are the star of this lunation. And with this fixed, no, it's not fixed because it's mutable energy, this mutable grand cross, we are going to be feeling pulled in all sorts of different directions. And, it does feel very distracting, very noisy, but it is about ultimately coming into that center point and trying to, get to a point where you are tuning into your own field without, all this like craziness going on. So we have got, Osiris I wanted to talk about. So Osiris, which is one of the Egyptian themed asteroids, is conjunct Sedna. They're 1 minute apart at this full moon. They're both in retrograde, so I'll come back to the camera and talk about how I interpret that. We've also obviously got Uranus in, approaching. Actually, no, Uranus is actually moving away from, this conjunction with these two bodies because he's now retrograde in Taurus. But, this is definitely an energy of awakening. So I will come back and talk about them. What else do we have? We've got Vesta conjunct Astrea, both in Capricorn, and they are interesting because they are going to be quite, I guess, prominent around in the chart at the time of the next new moon, which is the day before the solstice, and also 2 days or the day after Atlas 3I is very close to or closest to Earth. So I will be coming on and doing a separate musings about what I think these two energies have got to share. And also, as they move through Capricorn, they're going to start activating some of the Lyran energy, which feels very relevant. We have got Hecate here in Sagittarius, very close to Mars. So they have got a story to tell. And of course, we've got Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of this lunation. Mercury is at 22 degrees of Scorpio, now fully moving forward. So it's got a few days left in Scorpio, which, I think you've heard me say in other videos, it feels like I've been in Scorpio season for pretty much half of this year, which, I jest a little bit because obviously Scorpio season is finite, but I think with, the energy of the 9 and the snake, which are very scorpionic type energies, it has felt very extended, but with good reason. So Neptune is still at 29 degrees, the final degrees of the entire zodiac, still in retrograde, but very close to Saturn, which is now moving direct. And have we got anything else? Oh yeah, I'm just going to go back to Mercury quickly, because Mercury at 22 of Scorpio is in a quincunx, a very sort of tight quincunx to Chiron at 20 degrees of Aries. And obviously Chiron is trine Mars and Hecate. So there's definitely something to explore there, especially when we start to bring in some of the fixed star alignments as well. Up here at the top of the chart, you will have heard me talk extensively about the Sphinx. I think the Sphinx actually sort of deserves its own book, or certainly it's going to have its own chapter and something, as I start to do more writing. But the Sphinx in Aquarius is really helping us to remember and access kind of a riddle about humanity, effectively. And Chariklo, Centaur's beautiful wife, the healer, is sitting there as well, just holding space as a witness, giving that beautiful energy of grace and presence as we do start to reveal and expose and learn about some very, very ancient truths potentially, which with Aquarius are about setting us free, perhaps from the past, allowing us to access future, a merging of timelines potentially. It also feels very, very galactic here as well. And I think as we move into next year, the galactic cosmic energies are going to come much more into our awareness. They're there for a lot of us already, but I feel it is going to become more mainstream. We've also got Venus here conjunct Black Moon Lilith, both in Sagittarius. So again, with Venus in Sagittarius, this is about being able to, I guess, see a bigger picture, connect to a more expansive version of the self and what we value. There's a real energy of liberation, but also with Black Moon Lilith, a liberation from the shadows, from that which has been holding us back. And in Sagittarius, it's time to stop dimming your light, to start shining, to start showing up, to really let go of all those elements, those beliefs, those ideas, and energies which have kept us really playing small. And I feel, you know, there's some really beautiful energy sort of circling around this chart. Yeah, oh yeah, let me just also point out we've got quite a lot of energies at the 1st degree. So we've got Pluto at 1 degree, about to move into 2 actually very soon, but still at 1. We have got obviously Sedna and Osiris we've talked about. They are in trine to Pluto. We've got Atlantis is now in Capricorn at 1 degree of Capricorn. So, you know, this is giving us a new shift in terms of Atlantean themes. And we've also got Persephone at 1 degree of Pisces. So Persephone is in square to Sedna and Osiris, and if you've received my Cosmic Currents mailing this week, I do refer to that and the energies and potential interpretations. We've also got Persephone is in a sextile to Atlantis. So again, it just feels like so much is coming up from the depths, from the shadows, in being sort of portrayed in a new light that can help us release, to let go, to surrender, and again merge with, you know, this bigger picture. So I think that is pretty much all I can pull out. I mean, again, you know, I also could talk for days, hours, years about these energies, but I think I'm going to leave it there and return back to the camera. So let's talk about what some of those alignments and aspects could mean, and when we're thinking about this energy of this full moon. So where shall we start? Let's talk first of all about, let's go to Mercury, because this is the ruling planet of the Gemini full moon. And with Mercury at 22 degrees of Scorpio, slightly further away from an opposition to Algol, but very much in opposition to Capulus, which is one of the Perseus stars. And when we are working with the energy of Capulus, we are reminded of the hero. And this is Perseus in the story of the myth of Medusa, the rescuing of the princess Andromeda. And, you know, there's a lot more to his story than just these two sort of female characters. But we're reminded very much of the symbolism of the sword, of cutting through, I guess, fake ideas, falsehood, illusion, and really getting to the heart of the truth of what is going on. Of course, Mercury in Scorpio is very much still exploring the underworld, exploring what is hidden, finding out about secrets coming to light, which is kind of the theme of this whole full moon. So with Capulus, we are invited to not only cut through illusion and, you know, see the truth of something, but also be the hero in our own story. This energy kind of takes us into the realm of the divine masculine, but also sort of that fierce kind of warrior energy coming through, the courage to take on anything and come out triumphant, but also a reminder that we don't always have to do things on our own, that, you know, if we reach out and ask for help, then help is available. But it is very much about facing your fears, and as you do so, often realizing that, you know, there was really nothing to fear at all, and often it's just the mind. This comes back to what I was talking about in the earlier in this video. It's often the mind that creates the stories as a form of self-preservation, but these stories and this self-preservation can link to other timelines which are not relevant or applicable now. So it's about really cutting through all those stories, all those ideas, dismantling programming and overcoming darkness effectively by facing your shadow and your demons. So there's a lot of kind of intelligence, cunning, strategy coming through with this star, and also it can help to in the process of retrieving ancient knowledge, which again is a big kind of theme of what we are all doing at this time, whether aware of it or not. And with the quincunx to Chiron, you know, there's a real opportunity here to access deep healing, but with the quincunx there has to be a level of adjustment. And so by facing our fears, by looking at our shadow, by understanding things that perhaps were hidden until now, through Mercury in Scorpio opposing Capulus, there's an opportunity to step into this kind of line of healing with Chiron in Aries at 22 degrees, and really, I guess, see the wound for what it truly is. And often when we see something for what it truly is, the perspective shifts and the healing can almost happen, of its own accord. That's what I'm being shown. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is also very close to Hadar, which is Beta Centauri. So this is a beautiful energy of unconditional love, of co-collaboration or co-creation and collaboration, of coming together, of having this beautiful connection to nature and to Gaia, and I guess to the body as well, by default. But it's also an energy of bridging. It's very much with the centaur kind of theme. It's that bridging of the hybrid energy. So bringing two seemingly quite different, even opposing states of being together in a way that something new is created, that is actually very, very valuable when we consider with the Taurus influence in opposition. So that feels really beautiful, but ultimately it is about having unconditional love for everything, which includes your fears, which includes those parts of yourself that perhaps you haven't dared see before, and that really comes into being here at this time. There's a trine with Mercury to Saturn, who is now direct in Pisces. So Saturn is kind of giving that support through spiritual mastery, through understanding of the lessons, through holding space and trying to give some sort of form, which can be difficult when Saturn is in Pisces. We talked about that a lot. But again, it is that all this coming of age through facing the shadow and facing your fears. And then Mercury is also in a square to the Sphinx and to Chariklo, slightly wider square. And because I work with fixed stars, I tend to really focus in on the tighter square, sort of up to 2-3 degrees. So this is a bit wider, but it is still very much about with the square, with the Sphinx particularly, it feels like something is coming to light that will feel very ancient, but it's absolutely a piece of the puzzle in order to help us solve this riddle, and that is ultimately, the truth of who we are. So with Sedna and Osiris together in Gemini, I looked at those in the chart. They're both in retrograde motion at 1 degree, just 1 minute apart now. In a trine to Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius, quincunx to Atlantis at 1 degree of Capricorn, and in a square to Persephone at 1 degree of Pisces. So there's a lot of one energy here, which of course is about the new beginning and the new start, but also pioneering leadership, standing on by the self. And it's interesting that that was Sedna's plight. She was forced to let go of what she relied on and really find that ultimate transformation through exploring who she truly is. And this lends itself beautifully to the themes of seeing something in a new light, understanding new information, which creates a shift in perspective, which creates a new narrative. Potentially there may be challenge to go through, because Sedna's story and Osiris, neither of them had a particularly easy path. Sedna had her fingers chopped off by her father and was left to basically drown in the depths of the ocean. Osiris was murdered and then cut into many pieces by his brother, both betrayed by the masculine, the patriarchy or the systems that were supposed to love them, were supposed to stand by them. So again, that may be playing out in some sort of form, either in your personal world or on the kind of world stage at a collective level, the sense of betrayal. But actually it is through the betrayal that you find your true self. So often we have to let go of what we're holding on to. We think it's a comfort zone. We think it's something that is kind of serving our best interests and our highest good, but actually the truth is often very different. But it's not until we experience that shock, that cutting off, that fragmentation, that we truly access what's really been going on. So that is quite an interesting kind of dynamic with in Gemini. This again is about the mindset, the stories, again, too far to be, for me, a conjunction, but equally, playing a part in this chart. And with the square to Persephone, again, she's about going into the shadow, the underworld, the descent but she finds herself in that shadow. So again, you know, this is part of the process. Absolutely recurring themes every which way you look. The quincunx to Atlantis suggests that, you know, we might have to access some Atlantean lifetimes, themes, memories, you know, that may have become locked in Capricorn, or that are being held in the body or held in some sort of stone kind of structure is what I'm being shown. But again, you know, sometimes it's slightly difficult to access. You have to have a change of perspective in order to do that. So those are really interesting energies. I'm going to talk about Vesta and Estrella in a separate video because I think I would like to spend a little more time with them. But with Mars and close to Hecate, we've got this courage through Mars to go into the depths. With Hecate, she is very comfortable in the underworld. She is a symbolism of the divine feminine, but kind of that crone energy as well as the witch energy, very magical. She's a torchbearer. She is a way shower. She will walk with us into the liminal space, stand with us at the crossroads, show us the options and help us decide what is the best way forward. With Mars in Sagittarius, Hecate in Sagittarius, it's like this, you know, as we go through this process, we've got the courage to do it, but we've also been kind of this opportunity to, again, see the bigger picture and also set ourselves free through doing so. And with the trine to Chiron, this is deeply healing. The trine to Eris, you know, there might be something that is coming to light that, you know, may affect those who have been ostracized or marginalized or not treated fairly. You know, Eris will speak up for those who are treated, you know, miscarriage of justice, that type of thing. So again, there's a real sort of warrior spirit coming through with those energies. So if we look at the fixed star and the galactic energies, it's like, yeah, there's a lot going on with this full moon. The full moon itself in Gemini at 13 degrees is very close to Aldebaran, which is one of the royal stars. So this is the watcher in the east, linked to Archangel Michael. Sword of Justice instantly comes forward. You know, we were talking about Perseus earlier. Now we've got Archangel Michael cutting through that illusion, cutting through old stories, old narratives, giving us the courage, but also a strong protector type energy, the Blu-ray, the voice, the communication. You know, we can suddenly speak about something, or we suddenly understand something that perhaps wasn't available to us before. So this is really about truth, integrity, and justice. Absolutely, you know, coming through with the moon in Gemini. The sun in opposition is very close to Antares, which is the watcher in the west. And this is very much an energy connected to the Scorpion, but so therefore of transformation and shedding and letting go, but also very strong Phoenix energy, that transmutation, clarity, piercing clarity, again, being able to see something. The spiritual warrior is very active on this axis and these opposing royal stars. And then we've also got the sun very close to the Great Attractor, which is just like, wow. The new moon, sorry, this is a full moon. The new moon later on in December will be very close to the galactic center. So this month, you know, the cosmic energies, the galactic energies just come into their own, particularly with these lunations. And with this full moon opposing the Great Attractor, you know, this is this huge magnetic force field drawing us back to the truth. And because of the way it works, it is such a highly gravitational force. It's very, very magnetic. It can bend light or bend time. You know, we don't have to, I guess, work with or I don't know, be affected by the same rules, perhaps, you know, of linear time or, you know, what we've been sort of working with. This is distorting everything, but so that we can see the truth, so that we can see behind the curtain, behind the corner. You know, we get kind of access all areas almost. And I'm also reminded, you know, with Aldebaran, there is this sense as well of the all-seeing eye coming through, which is just playing into this whole full moon picture. Something is coming to light. There is nowhere to hide. We can always see what's coming, but we can see what's been, we can see what's left, we can see what's right. And it's like a light bulb, you know, this like moment of just, yeah, just staggering clarity feels like it's coming. And again, it might be on the world stage, it might be in the news, or it might just be inside of the self. And, you know, again, that can be incredibly liberating. So the Great Attractor is obviously affecting the nodal axis as well. So it's part of this grand mutable cross. We also have, I've talked about Hadar, I've talked about Capulus. The sun is in a trine to Alpheratz in Andromeda, so the moon is sextile, and Alpheratz in Andromeda, this is at the head, the heart, the crown, the third eye of the princess. And again, it is reminding us, because the Andromedan energy is very much about setting the self free, breaking through the chains that keep us bound. And often, you know, when we're working with Alpheratz, which is in Aries, so this is the head, the mind, the leader, it is often just a state of shifting your perspective that can set you free. So you might think you're trapped. You might kind of find yourself in a situation or this mindset, this belief, whatever pattern, program, that you just think, I can't ever get out of this. But actually, one small thing can shift, and you literally step to the side, and the Great Attractor is going to help with this. And it's like, oh, actually, I wasn't trapped at all. It was just a state of mind. It was just an illusion. It was serving a purpose, but now it's time to just, you know, step one side slightly to the side, and and things shift. And I've just been reminded here, my lovely friend kind of keeps coming up with this kind of image that, you know, we think we're in this one, we believe we're in this one state of being, one dimension, one reality, but it's often as simple as just taking a step to the side, and we can step into a whole different version of reality, you know, because we are working in the quantum field. So as I'm talking, I'm being reminded of that image. It's just a kind of just one side step. That might be all that it takes. And the logical, linear, rational mind just thinks, oh God, it can't be as easy as that. You know, this is like, oh my God, I've been working lifetimes to try and get to where I need to be. But sometimes it's like, yeah, just like that. So bear that in mind when, you know, things are coming up this week. And often once you've seen it and it's come in and you've kind of recognized it, it can just dissolve. So the kind of the demon, the big, you know, the big beast that has kind of been like, constantly there, you know, possibly for eons, if you see it in a different light, it suddenly doesn't hold its power or its force or its energy, its strength, its hugeness, and it just literally, evaporates, is what I'm being shown. So that is also interesting. We've also got the moon is trine Algorab, which is Corvus. So this is the messenger, the crow. And with the crow, it's interesting because, you know, there's that trickster energy, that kind of, you know, sometimes quite feared. It can be kind of, the crows often linked to the shadow world and the underworld. But it's the ability to go into the depths, to access the liminal spaces, to see what is hidden and beneath, below, behind the door, behind the curtain. You know, I'm thinking now of the Wizard of Oz analogy, you know, when Dorothy and Alphabet, you know, when they meet the wizard, they actually see that, you know, what they kind of thought was powerful and huge and like something to look up to actually was a complete illusion. Let's see how that plays out. It's like, okay, this could be interesting. It's like, House of Cards kind of crumbling down as you start to see things, you know, for the truth. I feel there's going to be sudden things coming to light that require adaptation, that require us to shift, require us to be not fixed. So in the mutable energy, we have to be prepared to, just change our minds, you know, shift our perception and our understanding. And it could be quite intense. So it's like, just go with the flow. Don't get kind of too distracted. Just allow what is going on to take place. A lot of shifting. There's a lot changing. There's going to be a lot of mental overwhelm, mental restlessness, but ultimately this kind of core desire and drive to figure out the truth. And I think in many ways we're likely to get another piece in the puzzle this week. Mars is conjunct Razzle-Hag, which is an officious. I was talking earlier about the 13th sign. This is the 13th sign. Hecate is here too. Chiron is in trine, so there's a real, at 22 degrees of Sagittarius the star is sitting, so this is the bridge energy. This is kind of stepping us up into the next dimension, the fifth dimension, possibly 5D, but it's also about the divine feminine. It's about kind of that beautiful energy of letting go, kind of very shamanic energy, creation, destruction, Kundalini, the serpent, the underworld, the shadow, but integrating dark and light and not being afraid to walk in the shadow because you understand it is just kind of a hidden aspect of light. So there's a real alchemy as well that comes through with this star, reminding us that sometimes the poison is the medicine, and sometimes things have to be painful, they have to wound in order for us to access the deepest understanding and the greatest wisdom. And I think, like I say, there are always so many different things to kind of explore. Just want to go back. I talked about this being a run of 4 full moons at 13 degrees, which is the divine feminine energy. But I'm reminded of the four creating that container, that holding, the divine masculine holding the divine feminine energy. And I've been shown this in so many different forms as I have moved through this year. So this is important. It's giving the structure for the divine feminine to finally rise, to be seen, to have a voice, to be seen in her complete beautiful strength and mastery. And I'm just putting the finishing touches to a deep dive report about the astrology for 2026, and I do talk about the significance of the number 4 in that. So if you're on my mailing list, when that's ready to purchase, you will receive an email. And obviously, as I create more content for this channel, I will be putting the link in there. But if you're not on my mailing list and you wish to be, you can sign up on my website very easily. Receive my weekly cosmic currents updates with heads up on what's going on. Receive information about the new products and tools that I am creating. And I also invite you to check out my new blog, which is on my website spiralbright.co.uk. I've got an article there about the Blu-ray and also an article about the year of the horse. So lots going on. Gemini is busy. It's all about writing, sharing, communication, learning. And, I thrive in this energy because my midheaven is in Gemini. Saturn is in Gemini as well. So it's like I'm really working hard right now, completing reports that I've been commissioned to do, writing my 2026 astrology report, creating my online course about the fixed stars. There's lots going on. And it's exciting time. So I'll be back to talk about sort of further on what's going on in December. We'll talk about Atlas. We'll talk about, some of the other things that I've mentioned briefly in this video. I'm going to leave it there for now. So thank you so much for watching and for being part of this incredible thing, whatever it is that we can call it. And sending so much love and gratitude to all of you. Lots of love.